You're listening to Morning Motivation with Matthew. Morning Motivation is a podcast that helps you focus on setting your week in motion. Each episode, we'll dive into topics focused on being and remaining motivated. Regardless of what stage you are in life, we need men who are now more committed than ever and dedicated to not giving up, not just for those around you, but for yourself. We want you to live a life fulfilled and not allowing 10 or 15 years to go by wishing you've achieved that goal you had. Look, I'm not saying I get it right all the time, but what I can tell you is that I'm fighting to keep it together. I decided to start this journey into podcasting based on life lessons and gleaning from mentors who've helped me every step of the way. Remaining motivated is more than just saying you're motivated. It's a choice followed by an action. A choice to get out of bed every morning, not knowing what the day will hold. A choice to continue holding down the family and supporting everyone else mentally, emotionally, financially, and physically. Remaining motivated is knowing that regardless of your current situation, you are dedicated to achieving success and inspired by those around you who are making it happen. I'll be sharing my own stories and life experiences. Along the way, I'll have guests who can share insight and resources geared to helping us remain motivated together. I'm sure not all will agree, and I'm sure I'm bound to have some hiccups along the way. What I can promise is we will grow together while remaining motivated, all while keeping it together. Good morning and welcome back to another episode of Morning Motivation with Matthew. I'm your host, Matthew, and first I want to start off by thanking you for tuning into today's episode where we will be talking about our Q1 review. Just really spending a little bit of time talking about our goals that we might have actually set out for the year, where we currently are in those goals, if you've fallen off or if you are still on track in terms of actually meeting those goals, or really just focusing on identifying what level of support you feel as if you might need and or even resources you might need in order for you to succeed this year. So if you all remember earlier this year, when we first started off at the beginning of the year, we talked a little bit about New Year, now what? And in that episode, we spent some time really talking about, goal setting and, starting over in the new year. And, how do you focus on courage and strength and kind of taking the initial leap of faith? And then we talk a little bit about failure and fear, and how, from my own experience, I was reading a blog by Rachel Williams where it talks about the value of starting over in the new year. And in that article, she spent some time, talking about um, like how really the new year really signifies your inspiration for being bold and trying new things and seeking further fulfillment. And for me, I talked a little bit about what were some of the things that I was hoping to achieve. As you all know, last year I started in a master's degree program. We started the podcast. This year I focused on eating healthier and dieting and exercising. I started on focusing on my business, so MG Coaching and Consulting, which I'll spend a little bit of time talking about today, and then focus on kind of setting some goals and really talked about how is it that we're going to focus on remaining consistent. And so that's what we are going to be talking about today specifically, is just spending a little bit of time talking about those goals. But here's the thing that I want to remind you more than anything. You have the opportunity to set goals in motion. It's important for us to make sure that we remain committed and consistent when really going after these goals and doing our best to really just put our best foot forward. That's probably the best way I can honestly say it. However, I know at times it's easier said than done. And that's because we have so many other responsibilities that we have to take into consideration with raising children and, working and whatever else we might have on the docket, um, that kind of oftentimes might take precedence over what it is that, we currently have set before us to achieve, right? And so in starting off this podcast, I want to caution you and I want to remind you to be gracious to yourself. Be gracious to yourself. And here's why I want to remind you to be gracious to yourself. It's something that I have on my wall that I look at um, daily, as a reminder for myself. And I probably honestly don't even look at it enough, but I'm looking at it today specifically because it reminded me of this conversation. I have a few scriptures on my wall that I'll read today, but the first one is Jeremiah 29:11, where it says, "For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future." So, what I mean by being gracious to yourself is for you to remember that God has a plan for you. And that plan that He has for you is for you to prosper and for Him not to harm you, but plans to give you hope and a future. It's just the beginning of the year still. We have just officially closed out quarter one. And even though you may not feel as though you've accomplished or achieved what it is that you've actually set out to do, it doesn't necessarily mean that you don't still have an opportunity to do it. It just means that you need a little bit more support. You need a little bit more guidance. You need a little bit more structure. You need a little bit more organization. You need a little bit, just a little bit more discipline. And trust me, we all need it. We all need it. None of us are exempt from it, right? Oftentimes, a lot of us may seem as if we all have it together, but that isn't necessarily always the case. I can tell you for myself, I need it now more often than I've ever needed it before. And that is just simply because I'm not always as gracious to myself. But beyond that, um, oftentimes I tend to do a little bit more than what I think I should be doing. Oftentimes I get bored easily. Um, Oftentimes I will set out a goal for something for me to actually complete and will be extremely hard on myself if I don't accomplish said goal. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm less than or that I don't have the ability to be able to succeed in that area in which I'm going after. I've just come to realize that oftentimes life happens to get in the way of what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. But you have to remember to keep going. And that's the thing that I want to remind you above all today. Keep going. For in Joshua 1 and 9, it says, "For the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." It is a matter of us being determined enough to know that God's got us. If He's given you a vision, if He's given you tools, if he's giving you resources, and if he's giving you people to help you carry the vision, you have to keep going. There's nothing worse, more than anything, than giving up. Go back to your vision. I think I talked to you all earlier this year as well, where I listened to Pastor Mike Todd, and he was talking about collision with the vision, and he was talking about, um, writing the vision and making it plain, as we know in Habakkuk 2, where it says, write the vision and make it plain upon tablets that he may run that readeth. For the vision is yet for the appointed time, and it chaseth or hasteth towards the end and shall not lie. Um, and so we ought to wait for it. But above all, I want you to remember to keep going. Keep writing the vision, keep perfecting the vision. Go back to your notes that you had in the beginning of the year, for everything that you set out to do. Go back to your vision board. Go back to the things that you know that God promised you in your secret time when you were spending some alone time with the Lord, early in the morning, right? Midday, in the evening, because we honestly should be talking to Him daily, right? Throughout the day. But go back to that. There were some things that I set out to accomplish individually. There are some things that I set out to accomplish within my family and in my marriage, some things spiritually and mentally, emotionally, some things within my business and my finances this year that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about. Some that I've been doing pretty well on, and some not so much. So, for starters, let's talk a little bit about finances. So, for my wife and I, we set out a goal to have a certain amount in our savings account for us to pay off credit cards, for us to budget for vacations, increase our mortgage savings account, and focus on increasing our earning potential within our Airbnb. And I can say that, it's been a slow goal, I guess, a slow accomplishment. But what I will say is that we have been able to successfully pay off two credit cards so far in the first 3 months of the year. I think one was paid off at the end of last year, but we go add it on up in there. So we've been able to successfully pay off two credit cards. We recently just came back from a vacation. So every year during spring break, our children's spring break is solely focused on them. And so we plan everything around them. So parents, take your kids on vacation. Take your kids on vacation. I was not fortunate enough as a kid to go on vacation often, unless it was usually with me and my extended family. But my wife and I have made it a point to ensure that our boys spring break and throughout the summer, that it is solely focused on them as much as it possibly can be. And so this year we went to Georgia and we went to Florida. Lord help us, we drove. But we set out to budget for that and we were able to successfully do it. We did go a little over budget, as to be expected to some degree, but all in all, we did fairly well. In the beginning of the year, I also started out with doing a juice fast because I wanted to focus on health and wellness and well being. And although in the beginning of the year I did very well, I fell off. And I fell off because when you're just juicing and you're eating raw fruits and veggies, it gets a little boring, at least to me. And so I am getting back and into the throes of that and really just getting back into my daily routine, especially since coming back from vacation. So I'm focused on eating healthy. I have not gotten on my cycle bike, but I'll get there. But definitely focus on toning and strength building. Some focus on weight loss and weight management, praying with my wife, worshiping more, reading my word is something that we're consistently doing, and then also incorporating that in with my boys, which is very important. Focusing on my family, focusing on conversations with my wife, and really addressing how it is that we focus on communicating with one another more often. Um, you know, addressing conflict with softness. My wife says sometimes I could be a tad bit harsh. So, honey, if you're listening to this, I'm working on it. I'm a work in progress, but it is something that I'm really committed to because all through and through, all in all, I want, not only do I want my marriage to work, but I want my wife to know that she's loved, valued, and appreciated. And so that's just one of many goals that I've set out for myself. But another big goal that I set out myself was the launch of my consulting and coaching business, MG Coaching and Consulting, where I have successfully been able to launch. I had my first official client presentation where I was able to go in and focus on some business strategy. I have two contracts that have been signed out of the three that I was hoping to get for the year. So I'm so thankful to God for that. So I've been earning a little bit of an income from that. I've been more consistent with motivating. We took March off. We came out of a series, a call for the love of marriage in February. It was a three-part series. Two of them dropped in February, and the last one dropped in March. And so I've been more consistent with podcasting, which I'm very grateful for. It's not easy, oftentimes, to go and take out the time to actually do a podcast. But when you're committed to wanting to help people, when you're committed to wanting to motivate people, it's something that I have thoroughly enjoyed doing. And then I'm looking forward to expanding. I'm looking forward to having some people on. I have somebody who I really, really want to actually come on to Morning Motivation with Matthew. But here's the thing that I want to remind you that I'm going to keep going back to for you to keep going. Because for me, I know and I believe what Joshua 1 and 9 says, for the Lord God is with me wherever I go. And because I'm connected to him, because I'm his son, because I know he cares, because I know he values me, because I know he loves me, because I know that he's for me, I know that I have to keep going. There may be times where you fall off, but you got to keep going. You have to keep going. Above all, you got to keep going. For in Jeremiah 29 and 11, it says, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not to harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. So my hope and my future is in Christ Jesus. And because I know that he's with me, because I know that he loves me, I have no other choice than to keep going. And so as you evaluate your Q1 of 2023, be gracious enough to yourself to know that it's just the beginning. And if you haven't accomplished what you've needed to go after, go back to the vision, go back to the goals that you set out. Um, Go back and assess what it is that you said that you would actually do this year, that you said that no one would stop you from doing. Go back and have a talk with Jesus, so that way you can really identify and understand how it is that you need to best strategize with Him by your side. But above all, keep going. Keep going. Oftentimes we stop doing something that we really desire to do because we feel like it's not going the way that we anticipated it to go. I had absolutely no idea that I would have an opportunity to really in the beginning of the year, like literally in the beginning of the year, be able to do something within my business, my consulting business. I had no idea. I couldn't even fathom going and being able to actually do a business strategy session with a nonprofit here in my city. I couldn't have fathomed. But I remain consistent. I remain connected. My counselor told me to go and get connected with people who do what I want to do, and so I did that. And so I want to challenge you to remember you in the midst of everything. You got to remember you. and continue to remember to put your best foot forward, because God is with you. He's with you. He's giving you everything you absolutely need in order for you to be able to succeed. And remember that He's with you. The last and final thing that I really want to highlight, and something that I challenge you on, is getting organized. Um, and what I specifically mean by that is, on a weekly basis, I try to, as often as possible on a weekly basis, to pull out my planner and plan my week out. Now, I'm not saying that this is something that everyone should do or needs to do, but what I'm saying is that it's beneficial. It's beneficial because it helps you in making sure that you are accomplishing those goals that you set out to accomplish. My specific planner that I have, um, asks me to address and identify 3 things that I'm hoping to accomplish, this whatever particular month that I'm actually in, and it allows me to plan out my weeks pretty consistently. And again, it's something that I don't always do, but something that I definitely attempt to do on a weekly basis, whether it be social media management, whether it be updating or identifying or addressing anything that needs to be updated on my business website, whether it be writing down what homework I need to do, especially as a graduate student. I'm trying my best just to fight tooth and nail, to make sure that I maintain my 3.5 4.0 GPA, even in grad school, while managing and maintaining kids and marriage and home life and Airbnb and consulting business. Let me tell you, and a full time job. So, trying to really focus on making sure that I'm able to juggle everything that I do on a daily and in a weekly basis is very important to me. And so, creating that level of organization is imperative, not going to be, but it's definitely imperative to me. And so I challenge you, to go after and do the exact same things. I recently took a personality assessment for my master's degree program, and it helped me identifying and addressing through this particular assessment that, about 71% of me, is a strategic person. And what they meant by that is that, um, I I'm really focused on meeting deadlines and achieving goals. um, and I'm very fond of checklists and schedules, even if it's just in my head, and it helps me with making sure, that I'm just very intentional with my time as much as I can be, or try to be. I'm very intentional with my time, and I like to make sure that things are planned well in advance. But the thing that stood out to me most, um, is it said that you have it at least a general sense of your life and career goals and the steps needed to achieve them. You have at least a good sense of your life and career goals and the steps needed to achieve them. And what I took from this particular assessment, and what I took from this particular saying, is that I work really hard, at trying to go after the things, the practical things that I'm really wanting to accomplish in life, not just for me, especially for me, but also for my children and my children's children and my children's children's children. I want to get all super sanctified on y'all, but I think you all understand the gist. Um, and it's important for me, right, to really make sure that I am writing the vision and making it plain for me, for my family, and for those I that God wants me to impact. Um, and so it's for me, it's really important that I remain, organized at all times, and I really, focus on seeking God to help me set and identify what is it that, I'm hoping, or what is it that I desire to go after in life. And how is it that I can be a good steward over the things that I currently have today? And how is it that I can be strategic in my finances? And how is it that I can be strategic in pursuing business or education or whatever the case may be? And how is it that I make the best use of my time? And how is it that I make sure that I'm intentional with my health and I'm intentional with spending time with Jesus? And so those are things that I definitely think it's important. I think it adds value to create that level of structure and organization. I think it puts you much further ahead than the other person who may not necessarily create lists on a consistent basis. And that's just the honest truth. That's how I feel. Um, and so as you review your Q1 and you identify what it is that you accomplish or address, and dig into what it is that you hope to accomplish that you did not accomplish, I want to remind you to give yourself grace. I want to remind you that there's still an opportunity for you to do it. It's not the end of the world. You will have an opportunity to achieve it. You'll have an opportunity to go after it. This is just the third day of a new month, April. January through March is over. Keep moving forward. I love you so much. Thank you for tuning in to Morning Motivation with Matthew. Have a good day.